Greetings, class. Of course, I'm not in today, so I'm going to be giving you a presentation using Screencast-O-Matic, I believe it is. Just going to tell you some things to write down, some things to look for, and here we go. Today, we're talking about the Industrial Revolution. All right, the Industrial Revolution. I want you to take a second and think about what revolution means. What we talked about, we said revolution means. It's about forcing change, forcing change. So today we're going to talk about what industrial means. So now you know that they're forcing change through industrialization. And you understand what that means later on. All right, here's how it started. 1700, wealthy landowners in Britain bought up the land of village farmers, forcing them to become tenant farmers to give up farming and move into the city. So basically what happened, it all started in Britain. That's the first thing you want to write down, is that the Industrial Revolution started in Britain. Give you some time to write that down. All right, now, as we said, they forced these people to move because they bought up a lot of the land. They bought up a lot of the land. Well, these landowners, when they bought up the land, they started experimenting with more productive seeding and harvesting methods. So what they wanted to do is they wanted to speed up production. All right, they wanted to speed up the production of crops. They wanted to make sure they got a lot of crops in a lot quicker time, if that makes sense. They wanted to get a lot of crops in less time. All right, so to do that, they started inventing different things that they thought would help them out. All right, we're going to come back to that. We're going to come back to that. Right now, we're going to talk about the factors of production. Okay, factors of production. You want to write this down. Factors of production. The things you need to produce something. Factors of production are things that you need in order to produce something. Write that down. All right, hopefully everyone's good. Again, factors of production, the things you needed to produce something. Now, I want you to think very quickly. Then I want you to write this down on your paper. I want you to think. Think about your favorite TV show. Think about your favorite item. Maybe it's your cell phone. Maybe it's your iPad. Maybe it's your video game. Think about anything that's produced. All right, TV show, a movie, an item, anything that's created. What do we have to have for it to be created? Take some time and think. What do we have to have for something to be created? So if you're using your iPhone, what does that have to be created? What are some things that has to have to be created? Write that on your own sheet of paper. If you're using if you're looking at a TV show, for that TV show, for you to be able to watch that TV show, what do you have to have for that TV show to be watched? All right, what does that TV show have to have for you to watch it? If you're thinking about a restaurant, what does a restaurant have to be able to serve you? For a restaurant to work, what does it have to have? All right, for anything in the world to work, what does it have to be produced? Take some time and think. Now I want you to discuss some of your answers with a partner. Discuss some of your answers with a partner. What are some things that you have to have? Okay, so hopefully some of you said things like this. Hopefully some of you said, well, they got to have some workers. They got to have a place for the restaurant to happen, or a place to create the cell phones, or a place to shoot my movie or setting. All right, they've got to have money to buy everything they need. You know, we need cameras for the shows to work. We need uh, food production. We need to buy some things to make sure we can produce the food. If you're a restaurant, we need to buy the materials, the raw materials for the cell phone. So those three things, you've got to remember that we need to produce anything. There are three factors of production. You want to write these three factors of production down. Land, labor, capital. Say that to yourself if you need to. Land, labor, capital. All right. Beside capital, because a lot of you probably never seen capital and understand what it is. It means money. All right. When you're seeing capital in the economic sense, it means money. So beside capital, put money. Land, labor, money. Beside labor, you want to put workers. Okay. Labor, workers, people working. And I know you all know what land means. All right. So you want to know what the factors of production are. All right. They're land, labor, and capital. And you want to know what it stands for. The factors of production are things you need to produce something. All right. And these are the three things you need to produce something. Okay. So industrialization. you want to write this first sentence down, okay, this first bullet. The process of developing machine production of goods. The process of developing machine production of goods, all right? So basically all it is, all right, all it is machine-made goods, when you're making goods by using machines, okay? Things you want to think of when you think of industrialization. You want to write these two things down: factories and machines. All right, those are two things you got to think of when you're thinking about industrialization. If you hear me say the word industrialization, factories and machines should come to mind. Now, you don't have to write what's in red, but if you look at it, use water, power, and coal to fuel the machines. Use iron to construct the machines. Use rivers for inland transportation, and use harbors from which merchant ships set. Look at this picture. When you look at this picture, what do you think about? All right. When you look at this picture, what do you think about? Hopefully, you said pollution. All right. That's going to be an issue when the Industrial Revolution starts. Now that everybody's using machine, we're using oil, coal. All right. We have a lot of pollution in the sky and on the water. All right. And that's not going to be great. That's not going to be great. I'm going to skip past this picture. Look at these guys. They all look happy. They're happy to be working. Okay, there's going to be some issues. We'll talk about it later, but there's going to be some issues with the Industrial Revolution, because what's going to happen is when they're buying up all this land and they're building factories, all right, more places are going to turn into cities, and more people are going to want to move to the city, all right, because that's where the jobs are. Well, the problem is at first it's all good, right? But if everybody moves to the city to get jobs, what happens? All right, the population in the city becomes bad. Everybody's working on a job. Now, if I'm a factory owner, all right, if I'm a factory owner, I can pay somebody less, and you'll understand that later again. All right, and it may remind you of what's going on in China still. All right, a lot of issues with China because they have bad working conditions or they don't get paid as much. We have something in America called minimum wage. They don't have that in a lot of countries. They don't have minimum wage in every single country. Okay, so that's something to think about. Somebody could be working for 50 cents an hour. Okay, whereas if you had to build that same product, they have to pay you at least $7.50 an hour. Okay, now back to the inventions. We talked about farming and they had to create some of the inventions. These are some of the inventions. I'm going to give you time to write all these guys down. Okay, you want to write Jethro Tull. Beside him, you want to know he invented the seed drill. Jethro Tull invented the seed drill. The way we can remember that, and write that down. The way we can remember that is you have two L's in his last name in Tull, and you have two L's in drill. Tull and drill. Jethro Tull invented the seed drill. John Kay. All right, write down John Kay. John Kay invented the flying shuttle. John Kay invented the flying shuttle. All right. Now, I don't know if y'all have seen the movie. What's that movie called? It's a movie where they have the flying bullet. All right. I can't remember where it's called, but the bullet goes sideways. If you remember that thing that he tried to grab that was going back and forth, that is a flying shuttle. So the way we can remember this is, I know you all have seen Men in Black. You had Agent K, right? Agent K was trying to get to the shuttle that was going to fly away. So John K, the flying shuttle. Men in Black, Agent K was trying to get to the flying shuttle. So I'll let you write that down. John K invented the flying shuttle. Next, you want to write James Hargreaves. James Hargreaves. James Hargreaves invented the spinning jenny. All right, he invented the spinning jenny. It's from the textile industry. And Eli Whitney. Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin. All right, Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin. That's the last one. Most students remember Eli Whitney, that he invented the cotton gin. Here's some pictures for you. All right, you see Jethro Tull and the seed drill. You see John Kay with the flying shuttle. Next page, you see James Hargreaves, the spinning jenny. You see Eli Whitney with the cotton gin. Okay, so transportation improves. You want to write this man down. He's another inventor, James Watt. James Watt. And beside him, you want to put improves the steam engine. Improves the steam engine. James Watt improves the steam engine. Because of this, water transportation is going to improve with use of canals. You want to write down canals because you're going to start seeing that a lot now. C-A-N-A-L-S, canals. What happens is men, all right, start creating waterways, man-made waterways. That's what you want to put beside canals. Man-made waterways. We're basically making our own rivers. And we start using these steam engines to propel some of the boats, all right, which helps us propel the boats through the canals. This creates something called steamboats. I want you to write down steamboats. And besides steamboats, write down Robert, R-O-B-E-R-T, Fulton, F-U-L-T-O-N. So James Watt improved the steam engine. Robert Fulton made the steamboat. Everybody should be good. Road transportation improves as well. John McAdams, you don't have to write that, but I'll show you in a little bit. Here's an example. John McAdams improves the road, and we start seeing roads where it's easy for wagons to get through. So in bad weather, the wagon doesn't just have to say, you know what, we can't go out today, it's too muddy, we'll get stuck. So now, in more weather, we can still trade. Right here's an example of what? Steamboat, exactly. And it's on a canal. So you can see what a steamboat looks like in a canal. Something I want you to start paying attention to in history right now, which is great, all right, is are we looking at portraits or are we looking at photos? You see, during the Industrial Revolution, all of these inventions, what else is going to be invented during this time? Yes, that's correct, the camera. Okay, so you're going to start getting actual photos of history. Of course, railroads is invented during the Industrial Revolution. Railroads invented. The English engineer Richard Trevithick built a steam-driven locomotive to haul extremely heavy goods like iron. George Stephenson soon began work on the first railroad line. Okay, now this is going to give people more what? Jobs. All right, and this is the positive effects of it. It's going to increase industrial growth because you have a cheap way to transport materials. Now you want to write this. You want to write railroads positive effects, and you want to write all of these effects of the railroad. The first one, like we said, a cheap way to produce or to transport products, a cheap way to transport products. Because now we can get more products on one thing and we can get it somewhere faster. Next, it created hundreds of thousands of new jobs. You just got to write created new jobs. Because if you think about it, if we had to build a railroad line or a railroad from North Carolina to California, all right, how long would that take if we didn't have a lot of people working on it? So we can have all types of people working on this railroad line in different places, okay? Same thing with the train. It takes a lot to build a long or a huge train. So we have more jobs now because of railroads and trains. Number 3, it increases the agriculture and fishing industries. You want to write that. Increases agriculture and fishing industries. Or you can write makes farming and fishing better. Okay, because what happens is if I'm a fisherman, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I can catch more fish because I can send this away quicker and make more money. Or I'm going to farm more products because I can take all these products, send them away. I need to make sure I make this product fast and I make a lot of it. All right. Number 4, encourage people to take distant jobs. Okay. Now, if I don't have to drive somewhere, I can hop on a train and maybe go an hour away, which will take me like 30 minutes. So people are taking jobs further away. Here's an example of how the train used to look and how it looks today. And that's it. You're done with notes. You're going to have some questions, and I want you to continue with Blend Space, and I'll see you soon.